which is good. So.
I saw it. It came to me. So maybe before we crack into this, you guys have got it.
If you need 5, we can come back.
Yeah, what would you like? Would you like to take 5 minutes?
Yeah, let's
we'll
take
go.
the 5
Okay,
minutes.
well, you guys go see what we're doing, and then we can get on.
I'll check when the must come out.
So the element you've been looking for? 2.5 years. 2.5 years. What was your background before you?
I was actually working for a New Zealand founded startup over in London. I lived over there, worked for 5 years and moved back home, found a job at VC. Now I deal with all the AI
And what are you Yeah, it's a lot of
Go. David, hey, well, kia ora, good afternoon, everyone. Can I say thank you for being here? Great to be here with David and Erica and Nancy as well, and thank you very much to Seaflux and to Punakaiki Fund for hosting us here this afternoon. It's really fantastic. Look, as I've said many times before, our government is unapologetically focused on growth, because a growing economy, frankly, means opportunities for all. It means better infrastructure. It means better shorter waiting times at the hospital with improved facilities and more medicines and more doctors and surgeons. A growing economy means that we can invest more in our children's education. And at the end of the day, economic growth delivers more jobs, higher incomes, improved public services and a better quality of life for all. There is an awful lot of opportunity out there in the world, but in recent years, I think we have done a very poor job of attracting and welcoming people that we know we could build mutually beneficial relationships with. For too long, New Zealand has had the shutters up on investment, and we've been reluctant to recognise the benefits for Kiwis from attracting overseas investment into this country. There are billions of dollars in capital out there that investors are looking to find a home for. Investors that have the real potential to provide jobs for Kiwis, to lift incomes by supporting new businesses, and investing in existing ones thirsty for a capital injection to leverage growth. We must roll out the welcome mat and incentivise investors to choose New Zealand as a destination, not just for their capital, skills and international connections, but in an increasingly uncertain and complex world to also build a life for themselves and their family here in a country of unparalleled beauty, a stable democracy full of welcoming people who share the values of innovation and equal opportunity. Earlier this year, Erica and I announced the new Active Investor Plus growth and balanced visas to encourage more foreign investment into New Zealand. And there are two categories of that Active Investor Plus visa. The growth category focuses on higher risk investments, including direct investments into New Zealand businesses, and it requires a minimum of $5 million for a minimum period of 3 years. The balanced category focuses on mixed investments with the ability to choose ones that are lower risk, and the minimum investment there is $10 million over 5 years. And I'm really pleased to say that since April this year, we've had a tremendous response with 301 applicants for the Active Investor Plus visa. And if all of those applications are approved and they proceed, that means a total investment of $1.8 billion of new money coming into the New Zealand economy. Now, this company that we are visiting here today, Seaflux, is a recipient of that very international investment. Seaflux, as you know, is an Auckland-based SaaS company that's developed a digital vessel management platform for commercial vessels used globally. And their cloud-based system streamlines vessel operations by integrating compliance and safety, maintenance and crew management into a single mobile-first solution, as we've just seen. But Seaflux recently announced a capital raise of nearly $3 million to help it grow, and that was led by the Punakaiki Fund. And this funding has been made possible through foreign direct investment into the Punakaiki Fund via the Active Investor Plus visa program. Now, you'll be aware that except in very limited circumstances, New Zealand bans foreigners from buying houses. That ban will remain. Those limited circumstances in which foreigners can buy a house include people who have qualified for a resident visa and who have lived here for at least around 6 months a year. However, the active investor visa category, residency visa holders, are not required to be physically present in New Zealand for half the year, so they don't meet the threshold for home ownership under the Overseas Investment Act, even though they have met the good character tests and they've made an investment of at least $5 million in our economy. So today I can announce that Cabinet has agreed that overseas investors with a New Zealand investor residence visa will be allowed to buy a house here to encourage more investment to grow the economy. Because active investor visa plus residency holders do not have to be in New Zealand for 6 months a year, the foreign buyer ban means that some do not meet the threshold for buying a house under the Overseas Investment Act. So the government has therefore decided that people with an active investor plus visa will be allowed to buy or build one home. The minimum value of that house can be bought or built will be set at $5 million, which equates to less than 1% of New Zealand houses. This change navigates a path between those who do not want foreign ownership opened up by driving speculative property investment and the desire to attract high net worth investors by deepening their connection to our country in order to help grow our economy. In closing, we want a country with more startups, more IPOs, more investment, higher incomes and whole ecosystems of growth and innovation. We want the best ideas and the best investments from offshore making a difference right here at home, creating the companies and the opportunities that Kiwis need to thrive. If you're a major international investor, New Zealand is just one of 195 countries all competing for your money and your ideas. Yes, we want growth, but there are plenty of other countries that want growth too. The competition is fierce. And the solution is actually competing harder, making New Zealand a much more attractive place to do business and to make big investments. The Active Investor Visa Plus visas have, coupled with the ability now to purchase a $5 million home, is doing exactly that. And with that, happy to take your questions.
How many people are you expecting?
Yeah, look, we've got about 1.9 million houses here in New Zealand. We're talking about above $5 million, it's about 10,000 homes. About 80% almost are here in Auckland, and about another 10% are in Queenstown. So 90% of them above $5 million sit in Auckland and Queenstown.
What effect will this have on prices?
Well, again, we've found the balance, which is that we don't want to drive up property prices here in New Zealand. We want to see more affordable pricing, obviously. But this is actually targeting people who are coming here, investing $5 or $10 million, like some of the investors that are here today, but then also giving them the opportunity to be able to purchase a home. If they're prepared to come to New Zealand, put $5 to $10 million into a business and secure a residency visa through one of those Active Investor Visa Plus categories, then we're good with them buying a home at $5 million or more.
So have you received the advice that's
No, there won't be. There won't be the stamp duty proposal. We don't think we need it. We think this is all about making sure that we are not driving into speculative property investment. What we want to be doing is driving into productive investment. Exactly the case in point as to why we're here today. This company, Flux, wouldn't have an extra $3 million worth of capital injection if it wasn't for Active Investor visas, investors actually putting that money into the Punakaiki Fund to be able to enable that investment to take place here. That's what creates jobs versus just flipping and selling property.
How many homes do you think, or have you run the numbers on how many homes you expect to be bought?
Well, again, as I said, there's 10,000 homes in New Zealand above $5 million. We've had 300 active investors apply. If they all go through, that's about $1.8 billion they're bringing in to invest in businesses. Obviously, if they want to buy a house, they can do so, but they need to have $5 million or more to be able to do that job. A lot of them will want to buy and remodel. A lot of them may want to build. But the reality is that will also drive work for our plumbers and our tradies and our electricians and our carpenters and all of that as well.
So have you surveyed those sort of just over 300 applicants for whether they are interested in buying? And do we have any firm numbers?
Yeah, we can tell some stories about that. I mean, Erica, do you want to talk to that one?
Yeah, look, sure, thank you. We know that one of the barriers for people investing in New Zealand is being able to buy a house. So while we've had 300 applications, we expect that we will receive some more interest. But the most important thing for those 300, we know, is if they have a base here and have a home here, they spend more time here. And there's a gentleman in the room I was just speaking to about exactly this. He has a home because he bought it before the ban, and he spends more time here. And he has gotten to know the local landscape. He's gotten to know more businesses, and now he's investing more. This has never been about the initial investment. It's been about the follow-on investments. So the longer they spend here, the more they'll invest. So we know that those 300 will likely be interested, and there may well be more. But we have heard that people, it is a barrier.
So you're expecting, in fact, to have more applicants to the investor visa categories with the overturning of the foreign.
I think we will see some more. I'm not expecting it to blow out, but I think we will see some more. We've seen 300 so far, which was more than we expected, but it's still a tiny, tiny proportion of the 130,000 people that come in each year.
And so you said this morning that this was an unhappy compromise, essentially, between all the different parties.
Oh no, I think it's a happy compromise, but I said each of the parties, Winston and myself, had different positions at the starting point, but we're both very, very aligned on what we're trying to achieve here, which is productive investment. And so I think we've got to a really good place.
So where is Winston Peters?
I'm not sure he's out there doing his work. Yeah. No. Well, and David's.
Why is 2/3 not enough for you, Amelia? Come on.
Have you done some modelling?
Gee, we've missed Amelia's questions. They're a different type.
Have you done some modelling on how, like in the next year, how much investment this is expected to bring in, or the next couple of years?
Yeah, so I mean, just if we take a step back, what we're trying to do with our investment strategy is two things. One is we've had our Infrastructure Investor Summit to reach out to big, large-scale sovereign wealth funds and international money to be able to partner with the government on big public infrastructure. And then as of April 1, we've opened up this Active Investor Visa Plus category, which is which has been really well received. I think we've had more money raised, I think, in the first 2.5 months than what we'd had in the previous 2 years, like $1.8 billion if all of the applications are proceeding and go forth from there. A number of them have already been approved and are moving forward. So that is money we didn't have in the country as of April 1. And again, I just encourage you to get out and see some of the businesses that are recipients of this money and what that's enabling them to do to expand into a new market like America, or to be able to invest more in their product to make it a better quality product that they can sell for higher prices. So, that's what the power of investment is all about, and that's what we'll pass this law by the end of this year and have it ready to go.
Forrest, can I just ask that?
Sorry, Zane.
Investment, the bank has done an analysis that suggests uptake has been a bit lukewarm. Have you looked into that and why that might be?
We won't actually know until everyone does their tax returns as to how much people have embraced investment boost. I'd just say to you, if you were down at field days, you would have seen huge activity of people wanting to bring forward capital improvement, capital projects. What we're trying to do is just move the cash flow analysis across so that someone who wants to invest in more plant capital and equipment, it makes it a more attractive proposition for them to do so. I think we've heard anecdotally, we've seen manufacturing numbers up over the course of July. We've obviously got the economy growing again in this quarter. It'll grow more strongly in the fourth quarter as we go forward from here.
It might suggest that businesses are just a little bit wary of making that investment right now because they're waiting for those signs of growth.
I think, well, as I've said before, I think there's two things going on. I spent Thursday and Friday in the South Island and Canterbury, and certainly if you're in Christchurch, if you're in Canterbury, South Island, rural industries, primary industries, rural communities, they are definitely experiencing the effects of growth, which is fantastic. As I've said, it's a bit two-speed, the recovery, and here in Auckland it's been slower, as you'd expect. We've got massive, focus going forward around investment boost which supports manufacturing, but also the work that we've got with $7 billion worth of projects kicking off before Christmas on infrastructure. And just as I keep saying, there's also a transmission effect where you actually have 40% of Kiwis about to refix or refinance their mortgages over the next 6 months or within the next 6 months, and of course get the benefits of those OCR cuts. And that's not if we've got more cuts, we hope before Christmas, but equally the cuts to date translated into retail rates means that someone with an average mortgage of $500,000 gets $330 a fortnight in their back pocket to spend back into the economy or as they see fit.
Has there been a quid pro quo with NZ First to get them on board?
No, honestly, we had a really constructive conversation. If Winston has been very constructive and positive about the need to attract investment to New Zealand. But again, both of us don't want to see what we've seen in the past, which is lots of speculation in our property markets and lots of frothiness and flipping of houses and selling houses to each other. That doesn't actually drive our economy, and what we're all trying to do as a team of driving more economic productivity into New Zealand, which is our core challenge as to why we're all working incredibly hard, but we haven't been able to lift our collective living standards over 30 years is because one of the things is we haven't had enough investment into the economy.
It's going to benefit.
Sorry, I'll go to you.
What do you make of the announcement on behalf of that?
Well, I had it summed up to me a few months ago. New Zealand needs foreign investment, but foreign investment does not need New Zealand. So we can't afford to turn our nose up to friends around the world who want to bring their money and their know-how to this country. And if they want to buy a home that's not going to affect first home buyers at all, I think we should see that as a massive win-win and a step forward for New Zealand and for the government.
Are you aligned with the changes?
Beg your pardon?
Fully aligned.
It's fair to say, look, I'm responsible for the Overseas Investment Amendment Bill, and I think it's fair to say I've been waiting for this development eagerly for some time, and I can't wait to bring it into the House in November.
Will this drive enough investment, though, if we've only had sort of 300 applicants and then, X amount of them will want to buy a house? Have you actually got the number too high maybe this time?
Well, I mean, they just said 300 applications and $1.8 billion. Now, I don't know what a lot of money is to you, but $1.8 billion, 300 investors in the last 6 months. I mean, maybe NZME is too flush with cash. I don't know.
But can I just say on that one, Amelia, again, as I said, there's two things we're trying to do. One is we want to work with big global funds, which is why the Infrastructure Summit was set up for that way for public infrastructure. But we have done a really bad job under the previous administration of turning off international investors, and you can meet some of them that are here. here. And the fact that we've had $1.8 billion potentially, if all of those applications go through, approved, that is more than we've had in the last 2 or 3 years or so. So that's a really good effort from April 1st, and that just speaks to the case that New Zealand, by saying we're open for business, we're a safe haven in a very volatile and uncertain world, you're seeing them partner in really constructive and productive ways with businesses here that want to grow, and now we're making it even more attractive by saying, well, if you're prepared to put 5 or 10 million of your own money into a business in New Zealand, we're happy to let you don't have to just rent a house, you can actually buy a house.
And sorry, can I just clarify? So is it $5 million for the active investor and then another $5 million?
Well, actually,
so it's
there's
implicitly $10 million.
correct, $10 or $15 million minimum, because essentially, what you're saying is if you want to have a pathway to residency, you need to take a higher risk investment for 3 years, and that is the $5 million amount. It's $10 million for 5 years. So that's the visa categories that we've set up. So you've got to have either $10 or $5 million to get that residency visa. But then equally, if you want to purchase a home, then it's $5 million plus. And I just would say, for many people coming that want to, the key thing is we're hooking that up not just to go buy a house and hang on to a house as a bolt hole down here in New Zealand. This is actually about you making a commitment to invest in our businesses that are enabling now a New Zealand exporter like Cleanly to be able to go off and launch into North America, which is really expensive to do as a New Zealand company, but that money, that investment enables that to happen. Or like what you're seeing here with Flux with that $3 million, enabling them to grow their company and build that out further. That's how we create jobs, that's how we create higher incomes, that's how we create growth. Sorry.
Will there be tax on sales, on these sales?
No, we just didn't think that was necessary, that actually the primary objective here is to make it even more attractive in a world that's pretty uncertain, to make New Zealand a home for money. And it sits alongside the work that David's doing around the Overseas Investment Act, the great work that he's done actually speeding up the processing of applications into New Zealand. But it's all about us saying we want high quality, productive investment that actually helps New Zealand firms grow and for them to be able to employ more people and to pay higher wages.
So with that golden visa, that only requires people to stay for 21 days in New Zealand for over 36 months. Should they really be able to buy our homes here?
Yes, there's 2 categories. Obviously, if it's a 5-year visa, it's actually 105 days from memory, I think, and then it's 21 days, as you know, over the 3-year period. So there's different residency requirements, but absolutely, this is actually really important. If you're going to come down here and invest in a company, and you're going to be in and out of New Zealand a lot, making sure that you're putting your knowledge and your know-how into that business, but also your capital and your cash. We think it's not unreasonable that you should be able to make, if you're prepared to make that $5 to $10 million commitment, you should be able to make another $5 million that goes ultimately into our local economy as well.
Prime Minister, I
want to reiterate the point. If you allow people to buy a home, they spend more time here, and you can speak to the people in the room who are evidence of that. And when they are here more, they invest in their local communities. And I tell you the other thing about them, they are amazing philanthropists.
Yes.
Amazing philanthropists in their local communities. So when you are thinking about economic growth and tagging that into our local communities, these are amazing people with great connections, and they get a huge passion for New Zealand, and their value is exponential.
Yeah, and I've seen that, if you go to Queenstown, for example, talk to some of the mayors, former mayors and current mayors, a lot of the people who are stumping up and actually doing the philanthropy and doing the support of key charities down there.
Conservation.
Conservation. Conservation's a classic case. Predator-free New Zealand. There's work that's being invested in cancer research in New Zealand from wealthy individuals from overseas. So, I just think, this is time we got with the program. We're doing everything to make sure that it's not just frothy, speculative thing driving a property market. It's actually genuinely about supporting more investment, which drives more jobs.
And just to circle back.
Sorry.
Sorry to
No,
what
you
you
keep
were
going.
talking about earlier, and sorry if you had mentioned this, but what is your estimate for how many people this might bring in? Are we talking tens of thousands potentially?
Well, we don't know. As I said, there's not that many people in the world that have got like a spare $5 or $10 million sitting around that want to be able to come and invest it here in New Zealand. But we want, as long as they're investing in the types of assets we want them to be investing in, which is why we've been very specific with those visa types. I think that's working really well, and I think the feedback from the community here in New Zealand is that investment is working really well since April the 1st.
Sorry, if wealthy foreign investors are allowed to buy a home here,
Sorry?
if wealthy foreign investors are allowed to buy a home here, why shouldn't foreign doctors or nurses become a worker, why shouldn't they be able to?
Well, I'll let Erica answer that one. Yep.
If you think about our foreign doctors and nurses, they are on a fast track to residence, so they get immediate residence when they land. In fact, they can get residence before they even land in New Zealand if they have a job offer. So once they get that visa, they can buy a home immediately, so they are already prioritised. Can I just answer your question about the numbers? Look, one of the things I said when I launched this visa was I hope we get 200 in the first year, and we're at 300 within 5 months. So it has gone better than we expected, but the numbers are very, very small. We are talking about hundreds of people, not tens of thousands. As the Prime Minister has said, there aren't that many people around the world with that money, that kind of money to come and invest. So we are talking about hundreds. If you look back at the old Investor 1 and 2, we used to bring in about $1 billion a year. We're already at 1.8 billion. This is good for New Zealand. It is good for local communities. It's great for these local businesses. Here at Seaflux, their first thing they're going to do, employ more people.
It's great.
That's what we're trying to do.
Just the last one from the gallery on this one. At the election, National originally wanted to have foreign buyers with a 15% tax on property sales. Why not keep that tax here for these wealthy investors?
We didn't see any need to. We really want to make sure we're doing everything we can to incentivise them to make the investments in New Zealand. We're encouraged by the Active Investor Plus visa progress, and actually for there be to put a cap there of a higher threshold than we had at the election as well is, I think, is sensible. So look, we've got to a really good place where actually if you can come in and make a $5 or $10 million investment in a business and you can spend $5 million or more on a house, that is there's only 10,000 or so that are sold at above 5 million in the whole of New Zealand, 0.5% of the total market. That's quite good. Sorry, Zane.
On the cost of living, sorry to change tack here, but
Sorry, are we finished with all the investor conversations?
Last one.
Yeah, we'll just wrap that up and then we'll come to you, Zane.
Did you look at the tax but then decide it was going to be too complicated, or did you just drop that sort of after the election?
No, I mean, we basically, we've kicked it around and we've been in discussions, obviously, between New Zealand First and national ministers in particular. But as a government, we've come to this decision to say, look, we think this is the simplest, most cleanest way to do it. And I'm really excited about it. I mean, if this gets us another 50 wealthy individuals that are prepared to invest in New Zealand. And I think the point, Erica was making earlier is true. I mean, there's a gentleman here who came here under the scheme thinking that he'd make one investment, has ended up making 4, has inevitably been sucked out of New York and California and spends more than half a year here in New Zealand. Well, that's exactly what we want. That is exactly what we want to achieve here. So it's just getting the thinking straight about what's our goal, what's the opportunity, what's the objective here, and then making sure we put a common sense policy in place to be able to encourage more investment.
Back to Vincent Peters, obviously he's not here, we've been over this, but where exactly does he stand? What would he have done or changed if he was the one that had the final say?
Well, actually, I think Winston and I have had a very mature, very constructive conversation through this. We both have wanted to find a way through it, also acknowledging that what we didn't want to see was just endless house flipping, and we want to see house price inflation in New Zealand driven by foreign investors. That's not what we want to see, because none of that's adding any value to building a more productive economy.
I understand that, but whereabouts did you have to meet? How far on one side was he and how far on the other side?
Well, as you know, before the election we had a policy with a lower level of thresholds and we had a stamp duty attached to it. They had a position which was they weren't up for any of it. As we've talked about over the course of the government, and we've done a series of things together internationally, talking to international investors, welcoming international investors here to New Zealand, going through the infrastructure summit, David's changes and leading the work on the Overseas Investment Act. All of us have come, all 3 parties in our government are pro-investment, and it's just making sure that. And that's why I think what we've got to today is a really sensible place, because it's not going to drive our property market and create speculation, which is what has happened in the past. It's equally, it's also welcoming, and it's sending a message to investors. We value you. We're grateful you came. As David has talked a lot, it's about we're grateful you came here, and you bring your money and your capital here to New Zealand. We thank you for that. We're grateful for that.
Yeah. Also, just make the point where we're going to get it done this year. So we've got a bill currently before Select Committee. It'll come back. We'll whip these changes in. We'll pass it. It'll be law before New Year's Eve. And I think getting it done that quickly is very attractive, considering where we want to go with trying to grow the economy, get more investment in.
Yeah, well
Prime
said.
Minister, just on that, are New Zealand First keen and enthusiastic about this?
Yes. This is a joint decision, where we've talked about this. We're fully on board with it. It's just as a cabinet we made the decision, we confirmed the decision this morning, and that's why we're talking to you about it today.
Prime Minister, just on the cost of living, and I welcome a response from any of you on this. Stuff has been looking into how much the average household in New Zealand, say with a mum and a dad and 2 kids and a mortgage, needs to live a comfortable life here. And some analysis that staff did suggests it could be, a household income of around $125,000. Does that sound about right to you, or do you think perhaps that sounds a bit too low or a bit too high?
Oh, look, I mean, I just would acknowledge that, people on middle class incomes in New Zealand have been doing it really tough. I've called it the squeeze middle, and it's been a difficult time for New Zealanders. This is what happens when you spend more, borrow more, tax more. And as you saw with the Treasury report of 2-3 weeks ago, the actions of the previous administration made the cost of living crisis worse. We were the second most stimulatory spending economy on earth. And as a result, the hangover from all of that has lasted much longer than other places. So I don't think the numbers are particularly helpful. I can talk to people who are actually on good incomes with good jobs who are doing it incredibly tough. And so that is why things like this today are about growing our economy so that we can create jobs and higher wages for people ultimately. That's the sort of stuff we've got to do.
How much is your supermarket bill these days?
Well, it varies depending if I'm out by myself for the 2 or 3 nights in Wellington. It tends to be about the $65 mark that I've talked about before. Yeah.
Hopefully you Treasury is a nice way to lead us there sort of thing, but could Neil quickly have kept his job if he hadn't resigned?
No, I think the reality is we expect an independent Reserve Bank board to manage their employment issues with their management teams. You heard a Minister of Finance say that we were increasingly unhappy with how the issue was managed and handled, and ultimately I think he made the right decision.
The Reserve Bank has no chair, no governor.
Sorry.
Just to keep on this, the Reserve Bank has no chair, no governor, and Labor says that the common denominator here is Nicola Willis. What do you make of that criticism?
Oh, look, no disrespect, but I don't take any lectures from the Labor Party on economics. I don't think they really have great literacy in this space, having been the people that actually have put us in this very difficult situation that all New Zealanders are experiencing. So, what I'd say to you is we've got a very strong and experienced management team, we've got a very strong and experienced board, and they are quite capable of fully discharging their obligations as a Reserve Bank, and so I've got every confidence in them. And I'd also just say to you, having come from an outside world, it's not uncommon that you change chair and CEO at the same time, and that's quite manageable.
Did the Minister contribute to this messy situation, this tension-filled situation?
No, she's done an exceptionally good job and acted entirely appropriately, and I think ultimately as the Chair has made a decision after 15 years, after having delivered a number of things, but as this issue carried on, seeing that actually we didn't want to cause any reputational damage to the RBNZ, I think it was the right decision to go.
Prime Minister, just on the cost of living question there, do you think your government has got the emergency housing settings exactly right? Are you fully happy with that?
Yeah, look, I think on housing, what we're trying to drive is more affordable housing, and when you look at housing, there's 4 components to it. One is, if you're lucky enough to own a house or purchase a house, that's a lot about our planning laws, which we're working incredibly hard as a government to make more streamlined. If you think about rents, rents are now down $5 a week. They were up $180 a week under the previous administration. If you don't get to own a house or rent a house, you often go on a state house wait list or a social housing wait list. Sadly, that went up 4 times under Labor. That's already come down 5,000 to 6,000 people off that state house wait list, which is fantastic. We've also had 3,200 families sitting in motels, coming at a $1 billion cost. And so we've actually found a way to get 85% of those folk that have come out of those motels. As I said, we've taken 2,134 kids out of motels and put them into warm, dry homes. That's a really good result. And as you've heard me say on the homeless front, is that that's a really complex set of issues. There was a dedicated homelessness minister last government, and it went up 37%. So these are complex issues. No New Zealander wants to see people being homeless, but we spend $500 million or more actually with agencies trying to help people with complex needs. We have our MSD available, and we also have a minister that's up for looking at what more we can do to support people who are in homeless situations.
Last couple, guys.
You did get those people off the emergency housing list, but your government is also declining a lot more people for grants from the outset. Have you got those emergency settings right, or are they too tight?
Well, we're open to looking at it, as we've said over the last few weeks, is that we're open to looking at anything more we can be doing, any tweaks that we can be making. But I'd just say to you, on home ownership, on rentals, on state house wait lists, on people sitting in damp, dark motel rooms, I think we've got more right than we've got wrong.
Are you looking at it now? Are you looking at reviewing it now?
Well, as I said, the Minister came out several weeks ago and said that he's spoken to a number of stakeholders, particularly around homelessness. Is there anything more that we could be doing there? But I just put it out to you, thousands of people are off the State House wait list. thousands of people are now getting lower rents than what they had under the previous administration. Thousands of people are now getting lower interest rates and therefore able to afford their mortgages much better. And thousands of kids are now out of motel rooms and proper homes and proper schools, which is good.
On public-private partnerships.
Hang on. Sorry. Yep.
On the new loans for small airlines, they're saying that they're a good start, but their operations have already been ripped to pieces due to high fees and levies. Will you commit to any more relief, bearing in mind people living in places like Marlborough rely on those flights to access medical care that would otherwise be...
Yeah, look, we want to support regional New Zealand, but what we're not interested in is bailouts and grants. And so what we've constructed is concessionary loans, which is an opportunity for those businesses to manage their maintenance or their leasing arrangements or their refinancing arrangements with their debt. And equally, a significant chunk of that money's gone into making sure that those airlines can interline with major airlines. Think about someone flying from Blenheim to LA on a regional carrier and also in New Zealand, for example. We want to be able to make that easier for a New Zealand traveller, but we also want to be able to make it easier for a person visiting us from LA coming into Blenheim, for example, to stay at a vineyard or to stay at a lodge, as they may well be being. So it's about making sure we put concessionary loans in place, which have to be ultimately repaid, to support those businesses so they can restructure and refinance, and that's up to them to do that in a truly commercial sense, and then equally having cash alongside to help support interlining, and I think it's a pretty sensible package.
Is that all they're going to get?
Yeah, well, that's what we've approved as a cabinet, and I think that's a pretty good start, and that's a lot more than what we've seen in the past. So I think we've been quite pragmatic, quite sensible about it, and I think those two aspects of concessionary loans and interlining make sense.
Cool, last one.
Why should taxpayers trust, sorry, there's a few probably I'll wrap into it, but why should taxpayers trust PPPs when the details of the transmission gully's legal settlement is still under wraps?
Well, I think in a modern world of 2025, public-private partnerships so that the government can get infrastructure built quicker than it would do if it's on its own balance sheet is just a no-brainer. You've seen Labor and Liberal parties in Australia work public-private partnerships for over 20 years now, consistently. And so the frustration from our end is we are a big believer in public-private partnerships. We haven't done that many here in New Zealand, but there's real opportunity for us to build them out, and that's what we are seeing is what we want to propose with what we've pitched. But again, I just say to you, from a Labor Party point of view, we've got one position from Barbara Edmonds, we've got another position from Chris Hipkins, Megan Woods and Kieran McAnulty. They need to get it straight because public-private partnerships are the way forward in which we can build stuff faster, quicker, better for New Zealanders.
But why should New Zealanders trust them when reviews have found them lacking unrealistic pricing, unmanageable risks? We've got the legal settlement of the transmission gully, resurfing being kept secret. Why not just release those details?
Well, again,
so that people can have more trust in the PPPs that you're...
So, Amelia, around the world, there's a lot of modern advanced economies, and they use public-private partnerships for a long period of time of getting infrastructure built. New Zealand's been quite a laggard and has done very few of them. Not every single one of them will be hugely successful. They've got to be structured in the right way commercially. You've got to have the right financing mechanism to actually support the right type of project. But all I'm saying to you is public-private partnerships, irrespective of an issue that you may be talking to around transmission gully, that is not a reason for us not to be doing more public-private partnerships.
Just up, the businesses on Albert Street are still facing massive disruptions from the construction and the continued delays in the opening date. Sunny Kishal, owner of the Shakespeare, is wanting tax arrears and amnesty on GST until it's completed for those businesses because so many closed. Is that something you'd be open to considering? Well,
look, I mean, we've got mechanisms in place to work through how we can support those retailers. What's really important for us is getting the CRL launched and up and running, and as you're starting to see, there's 10 or 12 big projects now above the ground that will ultimately reinvigorate the whole of the above line area, and that's really quite exciting for those businesses. And so, there are mechanisms that we have in place around compensation and support as we go through infrastructure builds. But I'd just say what's really exciting for Auckland is that CRL is close to completion, and what will be even more exciting, as I experienced living in Sydney at the time when a CRL type train station was created, how then the apartments come, the retail complexes come, people move back into the city, and they become pretty dynamic and pretty vibrant places for businesses.
And you've mentioned Jeff Kennett, sorry, it's on something else as well. Jeff Kennett is, you've said that you're sort of a fan of his work before over in... No,
I just said I acknowledged what they did on major events out of Victoria back in the 90s was really solid.
Why has no one from the government called him, got his riggings on major events?
We don't need to. We just, I was just pointing out outside in stimulation that there are places of similar size to New Zealand, like Victoria, that have actually been able to manage major events. If you think about what goes down in Melbourne now in a given year, they've had a very sensible framework for actually how to build out major events. We've come to government, we've inherited a pipeline that's just basically non-existent to major events, and all I'm signalling is it's a great opportunity for us to go back to the drawing board and rethink how we might want that to be. And as I said, the appeal of the Victorian model was they had a major event every quarter, they had a medium event every month, and they had micro events every single week, and that's how they built out quite a lot of their major events through the 1990s when Jeff Kennett was Premier.
Cool.
All right.
Thank you, guys.
Thanks, team. Appreciate it.
Well done.
Yeah.